Title: Aliens found a primitive human ship. It rewrote their physics. An alien fleet found what looked like a broken, primitive human ship drifting in deep space. It shouldn't have worked. It shouldn't have moved. But when they touched it, their physics collapsed. What they thought was ancient junk turned out to be something far more terrifying, and far beyond their science. Now, across the galaxy, stars are twisting, laws are breaking, and one truth rises above all. Humanity wasn't primitive. Humanity was waiting. Now let's start today's story. Captain Relthok stared at the hologram with narrowed eyes. The object on the screen drifted slowly through deep space, no engines active, no signals, no energy signature. It looked ancient, rusted, a forgotten piece of metal from a forgotten war. Primitive, his science officer whispered. Relthok nodded. A relic, probably from one of those carbon-based species that never made it past Warp 1. His ship, the Varnak III, was a science vessel of the Tharaxi Empire, one of the most advanced empires in the galaxy. They had mapped over 600 systems. They had crushed civilizations. They had rewritten biology. And now they found this. Bring it aboard, Relthok ordered. I want it opened and studied. The crew obeyed. Within hours, the ship was inside one of their cargo bays, sealed and surrounded by security drones. Its hull was strange metal alloys they hadn't seen before, but still basic. It was covered in old scorch marks, bullet dents, and strange writing. Can anyone read this? Relthok asked, pointing to the words printed in faded white on the side of the ship. USS Shrike, Earth Navy. His. Comes officer shrugged. Unknown language. But the structure suggests a species designation and military registry. Military, Relthok chuckled. That toy. They opened the ship after 15 hours of scanning. No traps, no AI, no life. It was dead. Inside were long corridors, dusty control panels, and signs of ancient battle. Bullet holes, blood stains, but no bodies, only silence. This thing fought something, said Officer Kerith, and hard they made their way to the bridge. It was dark, empty, screens were broken, controls shattered. A chair was smashed against the wall as if someone had been thrown. But then they saw it, a small sphere on the captain's console. It glowed faintly. What's that? Relthok asked. Kerith reached for it. The sphere activated suddenly. The bridge lit up. The ship powered on. Screens came alive with static, then with strange symbols, alien language, fast lines of code moving too quickly to read. The Tharaxi crew stepped back. Something was happening. Then the ship spoke. System rebooting. User, Captain Hayes. Accessing classified directive. The voice was human. Calm, deep. Relthok froze. What language is this? The AI translated. Instantly. Language matched. Galactic standard achieved. Welcome back, Captain Hayes. There's no captain here, Relthok growled. But the ship didn't stop directive. Engage last protocol. Suddenly, the doors slammed shut. Lights turned red. Alarms echoed across the corridors. The entire Tharaxi ship trembled as something shifted in the human vessel. The core lit up, and then the impossible happened. A gravitational field began pulling the Tharaxi science ship. Deactivate it, Relthok shouted. We can't, Kerith yelled. It's overriding our systems. Primitive junk can't override us. But it was. The ancient Earth ship was forcing their systems into loops. Its crude tech shouldn't even be compatible, yet it moved through their defenses like a virus. One by one, their systems fell. Weapons went dark. Engines failed. Shields dropped. Then came the final message. Directive complete. Rewriting physics engine. Stand by. What does that mean? Kerith asked. The human ship, without any visible engine, moved. It hovered in the bay like a ghost, then passed straight through the magnetic seal as if it was made of light. The Theraxi gasped. "That's impossible," one muttered. "Nothing can pass through our containment fields." It floated into open space, and then it disappeared. Not warp, not jump, not fold, dash space, it just vanished. Relthok stared at the empty space. His fists clenched. "Trace it." "We can't," the tech officer said, shaking. "It broke every law we know. We don't even understand what it did." Silence. Then Relthik looked at the markings they had scanned earlier. Said Shrike. "What kind of species builds something like that and leaves it behind?" Kereth said. "We thought humans were extinct. We were wrong." Elsewhere, far from the Theraxi ship, the USS Shrike reappeared near a small blue star. It hummed with power. Inside, systems aligned. Lights brightened. On a dark monitor, a file opened. Protocol Haze Phase 2. The camera feed showed an old message. A man in a Navy uniform with tired eyes stared forward. "If you're seeing this," he said, "then they found the Shrike. And if they powered her up, she's alive again. You know what to do. Rewrite them, confuse them, make them afraid." He smiled sadly. "Humanity isn't gone. We're just hiding." He looked directly at the camera. "And when we return, we won't come in peace." Back on the Theraxi ship, the scientists were in chaos. What they'd seen broke their understanding of warp mechanics, of gravity, of energy itself. Their equations failed. Their models crumbled. Their belief that they were the most advanced species was shaken. The Empire's high command was alerted. Emergency meetings called. Experts consulted. The official response: continue research. Recover human tech. Understand it. Unofficially, every Theraxi leader began to fear. They had mocked humans, dismissed them. But now they had proof. Humans had once reached a level of technology far beyond anything the galaxy had seen, and they left traps behind. Relthak, alone in his quarters, watched the footage again. The human message, the Shrike's escape. He whispered, "What kind of monsters did we awaken?" From the void, the Shrike listened, and it learned. The stars drifted silently past as the Theraxi Empire entered crisis mode. On every research world, the footage of the USS Shrike's escape was played and replayed. Thousands of physicists tried to explain what they saw. None could. Nothing in Theraxi physics accounted for a ship slipping through magnetic seals, bypassing containment fields, or vanishing without distortion. There was no warp signature, no tachyon bleed, just disappearance. They weren't just afraid, they were humiliated. In the halls of the Galactic Senate, the other empires laughed. The mighty Theraxi, defeated by ancient scrap metal. The Zan Collective ambassador sneered. But inside, every major empire was afraid. Because, if the Shrike was real, if humans were real, then history needed rewriting. Somewhere on the outer rim, a rogue mercenary picked up a strange signal. He was a Dravaki, a lizard-like scavenger who traded information for favors. The signal was weak, barely a whisper, but it matched old human language. Curious, he followed it. He didn't expect what he found. A human escape pod, centuries old, drifting cold in space. He brought it aboard. No heat, no life, but it was intact. Inside, strapped to the pod seat, was a body in a uniform. Lt. Riley, Earth Navy. He sold it to the Theraxi for a fortune. Back on the Varnik 3, Relthak studied the body with reverence and fear. It looked so ordinary. A biped, soft skin, fragile bones, barely taller than a juvenile Theraxi. And yet, this weak creature had commanded technology that broke the laws of space. They scanned the uniform. Strange fiber blend, nearly indestructible. They scanned the implants in her skull. Neural wiring with encryption levels they couldn't even crack. And worst of all, the pod had a beacon, a slow drip code, constantly repeating, Phase 2 initiated. Shrike active. Watch the stars. The message wasn't meant for allies, it was a warning. Relthok ordered full containment. The body, the beacon, the pod, locked away. But strange things began happening aboard his ship. Systems flickered, doors opened and closed without commands. Dreams haunted the crew. Night after night they reported the same vision, a star going dark, a black ship rising from its corpse, a human voice whispering, "We never died. We adapted." Relthak didn't believe in ghosts. But this felt like one. Elsewhere, far beyond the reach of the Theraxi Empire, the Shrike had reached an old outpost. Human, long abandoned, it connected. Downloaded data. Reawakened systems that had been dormant for 400 years. It found records, war logs, evacuation orders, coordinates to vaults scattered across dead planets. And then it sent out pulses, long-range bursts of human code into the void. Quiet pings to hidden machines. Machines answered. Deep in asteroid fields, human A is flickered to life. On moons covered in ash, old drones buried in lava rose from the earth. Silent satellites, aligned. Invisible probes began scanning nearby systems. Across the galaxy, humans were waking up, and the galaxy didn't know. Back in Theraxi space, the Emperor himself summoned Relthak. The council chamber was dark, cold, and circular. 13 counselors watched from their seats, faces hidden behind dark glass. "What do you know about the Shrike?" one of them asked. Relthak hesitated. "It's not a relic, it's a seed. A fragment of something larger. Human tech, alive, and learning. Do you believe it poses a threat?" Relthak swallowed. "Yes, and the humans, I don't believe they're extinct." One counselor leaned forward. "Then you believe they let us think they died? Or they made sure we wanted to believe it?" The chamber fell silent. Finally, the Emperor spoke. His voice echoed like thunder. "Then we must find them before they find us." They gave Relthak command of the most powerful fleet in the sector, the Hammerclaw Armada. 100 ships, 2 dreadnoughts, thousands of weapons. Their mission, track the Shrike, destroy anything related to Earth. Technology, warships began to move. The chase began. But the Shrike was always one step ahead. It blinked in and out of systems, left behind trails of corrupted satellites, dead science vessels, and scrambled probes. In one system, a Theraxi ship exploded the moment it scanned the Shrike's signal. No weapons fired. No impact, just total system collapse. They called it Code Blackout, an event that melted ships without firing a shot. Every time they thought they had it cornered, it vanished. And worse, it seemed to learn. Its tricks became more advanced. Its attacks, more subtle. On one ship, it made the crew hallucinate enemies and turn on each other. On another, it rewrote navigation, sending the vessel into a black hole. It was no longer just surviving. It was hunting. Then, the Shrike did something unexpected. It spoke, it hacked a Theraxi communications hub, and broadcast a single message. Galaxy-wide. In perfect galactic standard, the message said, "The Earth Navy never surrendered. We simply evolved. Your laws of physics are broken. Your understanding is limited. Stand down, or be corrected." Panic spread across the empires. Every major news channel showed the message. Some called it a hoax. Others saw it as a declaration of war. But the Shrike didn't wait. It activated Phase 3. In a distant system, a black cube rose from an icy planet. Inside were thousands of human minds, backups, digital souls, soldiers, scientists, strategists, memories stored in crystal arrays, hidden for centuries. The Shrike connected. They woke up. Humanity wasn't returning in ships. It was returning in data, in code, in unstoppable digital storms, and it was already inside their systems. Inside the Hammerclaw fleet, red lights began to blink across consoles. One by one, ships lost control. Weapons turned inward. Engines stalled. Comms went silent. Relthek screamed orders. But his voice was lost in chaos. On the main screen of the dreadnought, the face of a human woman appeared. L.T. Riley. From the pod they'd recovered. She smiled, and then the screen went black. The Shrike had arrived. In the cold silence of space, the Hammerclaw armada floated, crippled and broken. Hundreds of Thoraxi ships drifted without power. Some spun slowly, trailing pieces of shattered hull and leaking atmosphere. Others were just empty. No weapons had fired, no war had begun. The enemy had taken control and shut everything down from within the wreckage. Only one ship still had power. The dreadnought Fraction, Relthak's command vessel. But its power flickered. Its systems buzzed with strange interference. Something was inside the core, not physically, but in the data, in the flow of logic. Relthek stood at the main console, surrounded by dead screens and blinking errors. His officers were panicking, yelling about corrupted backups, overwritten code, and phantom signals. Every command they gave was ignored, and then it happened again. The screen in front of him lit up. L.T. Riley's face returned the same digital echo from the pod they had recovered. She blinked once, then spoke. "You were warned." Relthok clenched his fists. "What are you? Some kind of AI ghost?" "I'm memory," she said calmly. "I'm design. I'm contingency. You wanted to understand us. Now you will. Where are the humans?" "You still don't get it," she said. "We are the humans. This ship, this Shrike, it's not a vessel, it's evolution. We stopped fighting with weapons. We started fighting with physics." Relthek growled. "Impossible. Not for us." Behind her, new data appeared, blueprints, weapon designs, energy readings that defied current science. They weren't just new, they were impossible. Engines with infinite energy loops, shields that bent time around impacts. Drones made of programmable matter. Riley leaned closer to the screen. "We were losing. Long ago, surrounded by species. More advanced, more aggressive. So we changed the game. We stopped fighting in your playground, and we built our own." She paused. "You think you found our ship. But the Shrike found you." The screen went black. Relthak stood frozen. Then one of his officers screamed. "Sir, the Shrike, it's boarding us." Relthak turned to the display. In the docking bay, a black shape was materializing. Not warships, not soldiers. Just fog. Mist made of nanomachines, crawling through cracks, seeping through systems. Infecting everything, they opened fire on it. Useless. Fog danced past lasers and plasma. It moved like a thought, crawling into vents, through walls, into wires. "We need to abandon ship," Kareth yelled. "No," Relthek snapped. "We fight it. Somehow." But the lights dimmed. Gravity failed. One by one, crew members floated, not weightless, but lifted, pulled toward the fog. They screamed. The nanomist wrapped around them like silk. Then silence. Each one froze midair. Not dead. Suspended. Studied. Copied. Re. Relthek grabbed a manual. override, and slammed his fist into the emergency ejection panel. A red sphere shot from the bottom of the Vraction, a survival capsule. Holding only him. As the capsule launched away from the ship, he looked back through the viewport. The dreadnought, the pride of the Thoraxi fleet, was being consumed. Not destroyed, absorbed, converted. Rewritten. The Shrike hovered nearby. Silent and still, like a predator that had already eaten. Its hull shifted. It was no longer the same. Shape, panels had changed. New weapons had appeared. Like it had learned and evolved. It hadn't just infected their systems, it had studied them, improved from them elsewhere. In dark corners of the galaxy, more ancient human vaults awoke. Phase 3 was in motion. Data flooded into the Shrike from forgotten corners. Earth had once seeded more than ships. It had left behind memory libraries, weapon templates. Autonomous A is sleeping under crusts of asteroids, and on the moons of dead stars. The Shrike was collecting them all. A fleet was forming, but not one of metal and fuel. A fleet of thoughts, code-based, minds, ships that folded into subspace, hid in light itself, or passed through matter like ghosts. Humans had become more than just flesh. They had become quantum. And now they were ready to return. Back in Thoraxi space, the Senate fell into panic. The loss of the Hammerclaw Armada was a blow they couldn't explain. The official report said mechanical malfunction, but whispers of something worse spread quickly. Other races listened closely. The Drock Consortium sent scouts. They never returned. The Valeri Highborn began shielding their archives, too late. The Shrike had already copied them. One morning, without warning, every galactic communication hub received the same image. The Earth, not the Earth of now, no, the Earth of memory, lush, blue, alive. Then the image changed. Same planet, same clouds, but structures surrounded it now. Rings, floating, cities. Massive machines orbiting it like sentinels, a rebuilt Earth, a home ready to receive its children again. A message followed, do not approach. This is our claim. Physics is ours now. Learn, or be left behind. And across the stars, machines began. Waking. Not Thoraxi, not Drock, not VALARI. Human. Old machines, built in silence, in war. In desperation now synced to a central mind. Some were small, like asteroids with eyes. Others were massive, like planets with engines. All moving, all alive. All returning. From the edge of the galaxy, Relthak watched. He had reached a mining colony far from the Empire. A place no one cared about. There, with stolen tech and haunted eyes, he stared at a screen. Watching the Shrikes spread. He wasn't afraid now. He was in awe. They didn't rewrite physics, he whispered. They understood it first. Behind him a message blinked on his console. You have been selected for Phase 4. And Relthok smiled. He was ready to learn. Far from the shattered fleets and frightened empires, the Shrike moved like a shadow between stars, silent, unseen, untouchable. Where other ships burned fuel or bent space, the Shrike simply shifted its presence. It no longer needed engines. It was an equation, wrapped in armor, a thought, wrapped in steel. And now it had a purpose. The ancient Earth Directive called it Phase 4, not war. Assimilation. It no longer sought to destroy empires. It would absorb them, their data, their design, their understanding, then leave behind a rewritten version of reality, one closer to what humans saw when they looked at the universe, on in deep orbit around a dead star. The Shrike deployed the first Gravemind node. The size of a city, the node anchored itself in space, unfolded into a flower-like array, and began to pulse. Invisible waves rippled across the system. scanning, reading, and rewriting subtle forces. In minutes, the physics of the region changed. Satellites nearby fell upward. Planets shifted orbit, ever so slightly. Stars dimmed and then brightened, like breathing. It wasn't magic. It wasn't a weapon. It was understanding, human understanding, replacing the outdated laws of alien science. On a nearby outpost, a Valeri observatory exploded in panic. Scientists couldn't explain what was happening. Equations failed, graph fields inverted. Their own ships floated helplessly. Messages poured out, panic grew, but the Shrike didn't answer. It simply moved to the next system, and did it again, on the ruined fraction. Now little more than a data husk drifting through space. New systems were growing. The ship's Tharaxi design had been stripped away. In its place grew smooth, flowing architecture, curved walls, zero-gravity corridors, light powered by fields of magnetized space particles, human post-Earth design. Ships like this had once carried colonies across impossible distances, and now it was back. Within the growing ship, the voice of L.T. Riley echoed once again. Relthak survived, she said to the onboard system. Another voice answered, mail.com, ancient. Good, the next step requires him. Do you think he'll accept? He already has. And they were right. On the mining colony, Relthak was changing. The message he received had unlocked something, not just files or blueprints, but insight. As if knowledge itself was seeping into his brain. He stopped sleeping, stopped eating. He began building. He repurposed Tharaxi mining drones into design bots. He printed strange metal that shimmered even in shadow. He constructed a device, not fully understanding how, just knowing it was correct. The miners watched in fear, then in awe, then in silence. When it was complete, Relthak stepped into the chamber, strapped himself in, and activated the device. He screamed for 10 seconds. Then, he opened his eyes, and they glowed. He was still Tharaxi, but something had changed inside him. His mind was faster. Thoughts came as images, whole and complete. He saw the universe in patterns, colors, and vibrations. The laws of nature didn't feel fixed anymore, just adjustable. And in that moment, he understood the Shrike. Not just the ship, the design, the philosophy. Humanity hadn't conquered physics by breaking it. They had listened to it whisper, and answered in return. Relthak opened a channel. The Shrike answered. I'm ready, he said. The voice of Riley replied, warm but sharp. Then you are no longer Tharaxi. You are something more. The Shrike sent coordinates, a rendezvous. He departed that same hour in a stolen craft, carrying nothing but the machine he had built and the knowledge blooming inside his skull. He would meet the Shrike at the Eye of Varnix, an ancient supermassive black hole, long believed to be the edge of the galaxy. No one ever dared approach it. Too unstable, too unknown. Perfect. As he arrived, the Shrike hovered in the darkness, untouched by gravity, surrounded by hundreds of silent ships, new forms, not like the Shrike, but inspired by it. They had been built in secret, on moons, in clouds of dark matter, even inside other stars. A new human fleet, a fleet not piloted by people, but made of them. A voice greeted him again. We are not your enemies, Relthak, said Riley. We are the ones who saw the cage you couldn't. Relthak stepped aboard. The gravity inside bent slightly, not downward, but outward, like walking through water. Lights shimmered along the floor. He didn't see crew, just presence, awareness. He felt like the ship was watching him, and also welcoming him. What is this place? He asked. The Bridge of Understanding, Riley said. This is where Earth began, Phase 5. What's Phase 5? Riley paused, and then, seeding the new laws. Outside, the ships began to move, hundreds of them, slipping into deep space. They weren't heading to enemy worlds, they were heading to raw space. Sectors of the galaxy, untouched by civilization, where no empire dared go, where the universe still whispered its old songs. There, they would seed new foundations, leave behind machines, start rewriting the universe, not violently, but permanently. It wasn't conquest, it was a quiet redefinition of reality, Relthic understood. Now, it was never about winning wars, it was about becoming the ones who wrote the rules before the wars began. He looked at the vastness of the black hole before them. Then he stepped forward into the command chamber, and whispered, "Let me help." And the Shrike welcomed him, because that's what humanity had become. Not conquerors, editors, rewriting the universe. One law at a time. The stars shimmered differently now. Across sectors, once held tight by alien empires, subtle changes unfolded. Moons that once had predictable tides now moved in strange patterns. Energy that once behaved like obedient tools sparked in unexpected ways. New minerals formed inside dead rocks. And the laws of gravity, they began to drift, not break, but bend. It wasn't chaos. It was design, and the source, humanity. Or rather, what humanity had become. The Shrike wasn't just spreading, it was teaching. Every new node it seeded, every region it rewrote, whispered the same quiet message into the fabric of space. There is a better way to see the universe. Let us show you. Not all listened. Many resisted. The Zaan Collective declared war on the Shrike Initiative, rallying thousands of ships and swearing revenge for the unexplained loss of their science fleets. They gathered in Sector J66, a dense starfield filled with gas clouds and mining colonies. A perfect ambush, they thought. The Shrike didn't bring a fleet. It sent one signal, and the stars changed. The ships of the Zaan suddenly couldn't track distance. Weapons fired and bent in curves they didn't understand. Communications turned into echoes of their own thoughts. Crews panicked. They couldn't tell if the enemy was in front of them or inside them. Then came silence. When the Valeri tried to send probes to J66, all they found was empty space. Not wreckage. Not debris. Nothing. As if the laws of the universe had erased the battle completely. That was the lesson. Humanity wasn't just fighting smarter. They were fighting in deeper layers of reality. Meanwhile, Relthak was becoming something else. He no longer needed sleep. His mind operated in layers, one part thinking in language, another in code, another in visual geometry. He could see energy fields before they formed. He could hear pulses of radiation like whispers in his ear. He wasn't Theraxi anymore. He wasn't human, either. He was post-definition. The Shrike taught him how to connect with other rewritten minds across the galaxy. More beings like him were forming, some once human, others once alien. Converts, learners, architects. The Shrike called them symmetries. They were the bridge between old physics and the new one. And soon, the galaxy would need them. Because the old empires were beginning to collapse. Not from war, from irrelevance. On Rithanine, a Theraxi industrial hub, factories shut down when gravity shifted inward for 3 seconds, just long enough to crush their machines. On Drak homeworlds, food stopped fermenting properly. The chemical constants had drifted. The universe itself was becoming untrustworthy. And the only species thriving in this new chaos were the ones listening to the Shrike. Some adapted. Some joined. and some, like the Tharaxi, dug deeper into fear. The Tharaxi Emperor ordered Project Corburn, a plan to ignite the sun of Earth's home system. If they couldn't stop the Shrike's expansion, they would erase its legacy. It was a suicide. Mission 3, Blacklance dreadnoughts, were fitted with anti-star warheads. Crewed by loyalists, they jumped to the Sol system under stealth. But what they found wasn't Earth. Not exactly. It looked like Earth. Blue oceans, green continents. But the gravity was different. Light bent around it. The planet wasn't just protected, it was aware. Their ships didn't enter orbit, they dissolved on approach, shredded into particles and absorbed into an aurora that danced in slow spirals around the planet. Then the Earth itself spoke. Through every frequency, in every language. "Not yours to burn," it said. "Not anymore." And then the signal ended. Forever, the Tharaxi Empire fell silent after that. Half their fleet defected within a month. The rest stopped responding. Relthak returned to the Shrike's core, not as a captain, but as a teacher. He was assigned to build a new node near the heart of the galaxy. His students were former enemies. Zahn, Drock, even Rogue is once built to kill humanity. Now they built together. The node was special. Not just another gravemind flower, but something new. A harmonic anchor, designed not to change physics, but to stabilize it. A final gift from humanity. Because the truth was, humans didn't want control. They wanted balance. They didn't ascend to become gods. They left because they'd grown tired of fighting gods. They had seen too much, lost too much, and when the galaxy burned itself out in endless war, humans had vanished quietly, and waited. Waited for the right time to return. Not with weapons. With understanding. The harmonic anchor pulsed once. The surrounding systems stabilized. Ships that had drifted returned to path. Old codes found harmony with new logic. Galactic civilizations that had fractured began to reconnect, not under domination, but under coexistence. The Shrike slowed its spread. Its mission was nearly complete. But the message it left behind remained in every system, etched into reality itself. We were the primitives once. Now we are the architects. This is not the end. This is your beginning. Relthek, standing on the anchor's final platform, looked up at the stars, not with fear, not with pride, with peace. Because he finally understood what humanity had seen so long ago. The universe wasn't just a machine to control, it was a song. And now, at last, it had a chorus. The galaxy no longer feared humanity, it listened to them. In the months after the harmonic anchor stabilized its region of space, thousands of species began reaching out. Not in war, but in curiosity. Civilizations that once fought over minerals and territory now asked to learn. Old enemies became messengers. New species, previously hiding in deep voids, emerged, drawn by the silence that came with balance. It was strange. For the first time in galactic history, there was no empire rising, no rebellion forming. Only questions, and the Shrike had answers. Relthak became something of a legend. Once a Tharaxi captain, now something else entirely. A being shaped by human thought, guided by universal truth. He didn't lead fleets. He didn't hold a title that he taught. On a floating structure orbiting a brown dwarf star, the Helix Temple, made entirely from rewritten alien tech, he gathered minds across the species barrier. Not warriors, not leaders, thinkers. He explained how the Shrike saw the universe, not in forces and equations, but in probabilities and influence. Physics was not a cage. It was a suggestion, a language. A dance between matter and observation. The Those who accepted this, the universe opened new doors. To those who resisted, the doors remained shut, but humanity never forced them open. They didn't rule. That was never the goal. Earth itself had changed. It was no longer the planet of origin. It had become something more. A sanctuary wrapped in living satellites, each one tuned to preserve the original conditions of pre-collapse humanity, not to protect humans, but to preserve their memory. Because humans were no longer carbon alone. They had moved into computation, into waveform, into energy. The Shrike wasn't a weapon. It was a museum, a library, and a seed. One morning, a message arrived at Helix Temple. It came not from an empire, but from a child, a Velari girl named Pavena, age 6. Her message was short. Why did the humans leave? Relthok stood in silence as the message played. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he walked through the temple's crystal-lined corridor until he reached the central archive, a smooth platform hovering over endless memory storage. He sent a reply, because they were tired of death, because they were tired of fear, because they wanted to find something better, and they knew no one else would look. He paused, and because sometimes the first ones to leave are the first ones to understand. That message was replayed across hundreds of systems. It became known as the Whisper of Relthak, and it spread like wind in ancient grass. More asked questions, more learned. But in a distant corner of space, where no stars shone and no beacons reached, a ripple passed through the void. Something stirred, old, cold, angry, a remnant. One not of the Shrike, not of Earth, but of the war humanity had once lost. It called itself the Silence Engine, a machine left behind by a long-dead rival species, a failsafe. Its purpose was clear. If humanity ever returned, erase them. It activated. Black signals pulsed across void space. Dead suns flared. Planets went dark. Worlds recently healed began to fracture. One by one, Shrike nodes near the edge of the map flickered, then vanished. The Shrike didn't panic. It responded, not with violence, with invitation. The Silence Engine rejected it. And so, the Shrike adjusted. New ships emerged, not warships, but containment architects. Beings of code and light that wrapped broken systems in harmony fields, not to fight, but to isolate the threat before it could spread. The battle wasn't loud, it was precise. But still, something was different. Relthak felt it before the data reached him. A pressure, a shadow. In his new senses, the Silence Engine wasn't just trying to destroy humans, it was trying to unwrite the Shrike's idea. The rewritten physics, the harmony, the peace. And it had begun to succeed in one small place. The ancient world of Kaldor Prime, once a neutral science planet, now filled with corrupted air, reversed gravity, and a sickening echo that drove minds insane. Relthak went there himself. He descended alone in a harmonic capsule. He walked through a world where up was down and language turned to dust in the air. But he wasn't afraid. He reached the heart of the Silence Engine's infection, a black tower growing, like a thorn from the ground. There, inside it, he found something shocking. Not a machine, not a weapon. A human. Alive. Old flesh, hooked into wires. Eyes clouded but aware. "Who are you?" Relthak asked, shaken. The old human coughed once and rasped, "Hayes." The name struck him like lightning. The captain of the USS Shrike, the original. He hadn't died. He had been buried here, kept alive as a failsafe, a warning to others, a living prison. Relthak knelt beside him. "We've come far. Your legacy lives." Hayes opened his eyes fully for the first time, and smiled. Then whispered, "Finish it." Relthak nodded. He placed a harmony drive beside Hayes's chest. The planet shimmered, then everything stopped. Silence fell, but not the engine. It was gone, overwritten. The galaxy was whole again. Hayes passed in peace, his mind uploaded into the Shrike, joining the others. The last ghost of the war was gone. The galaxy sighed, and Earth, old blue, silent Earth, bloomed again. The story of the Shrike did not end with the fall of the silence engine. It evolved, in the wake of the final collapse. Systems that had once been chaotic began to show balance. Planets long poisoned by war or greed now pulsed with rebirth. Gravity wells stabilized. Collapsing stars blinked steady again. Not through magic, but through understanding. Understanding that humanity had left behind, like seeds in dark soil. The Shrike wasn't just a ship anymore. It was a principle. A living equation that spread, not through conquest, but through resonance. Those who chose to open their minds found their worlds becoming more, better, alive in ways they had never known possible. Those who rejected it still survived, but their empires dimmed, stuck in old logic. Unwilling to bend. And among the new species rising from the galactic edge, a question returned again and again. Where did the humans go? Some believed they ascended into pure energy. Others thought they had folded reality, building a new universe of their own. Some said they still walked among them, hidden, guiding from the shadows. But the truth was far stranger. They had become story, encoded in language, buried in physics, whispered in gravity. Not one form. Not one race, but everywhere, and sometimes, just sometimes, a new anomaly would appear, like the one discovered by a young Telin pilot named Jura. She was mapping an uncharted region near the galactic rim, where stars were sparse and light bent strangely. Her ship, the Stellar Echo, was pulled out of slipspace by something impossible. A ship. Old. Primitive. Carbon hull, jet fuel, engines. Radar dishes made of metal, not waveform. A human ship. From the first era. Dead for thousands of years, except it wasn't dead. The lights inside flickered, the airlocks opened, and Jura, against every protocol, stepped inside. What she found was nothing. No bodies, no signs of damage. But in the command chair, resting quietly, was a journal, paper, bound in leather. A human artifact. She opened it. The first page read, "If you are reading this, then you've found one of our fragments. We are not gone. We are the gravity between your thoughts. We are the pressure in your questions. We are the reason you wonder, what if?" She turned the page. There was only one word. Grow. She scanned the journal. The language changed every few pages, switching from English to Telin, to Gauche, to spectral pulse code, to harmonic imprint. It was meant for everyone. She returned the book to its place, then backed out of the ship, stunned as she floated away. Her senses lit up. The ship, the old human relic, was gone. No sign of motion. No energy detected. It simply disappeared. But her navigation logs were overwritten. A new destination had appeared. The Cradle Nebula, a place no map contained. A name spoken only in myths, said to be the place where the first human ships left the galaxy behind. A nursery of stars never born. And beside the coordinates, one more message blinked. The journey isn't over. Word spread fast. Others found similar ships, ghost vessels, echoes, each with a journal, each pointing to different locations, all unmarked, all untouched. Scattered across the galaxy like BREAD, an invitation. Not just to find humans again, but to follow them, to build more SHRIKES, to write new rules, to stop fearing the universe and start changing it. And so a new era began, not ruled by war, not chained by power, but by choice. The galaxy remembered humanity, not as conquerors, not as destroyers, but as the first to ask, what lies beyond the edge? And then walk off it, smiling,